pollution, cities are clean. It's a great air to breathe. Our education system as well is quite advanced. It prepares the young generation for a very bright future. I'm an architect and a design technologist, and I'm quite proud about our built environment as well. It is very adaptive to this fast-changing world. And with these salient features, today India is one of the most innovative countries in the world when it comes to technology, education, or design. Right? Well, I'm afraid I cannot lie any further on this stage. None of this is true. We know that. But I really wish this was true. And looking at each one of you, I can say that we all wish this would be true. Let's hope it would be someday. Today, let's accept that India is lacking in all of these aspects. Our cities are not very well designed to adapt to this fast-paced world. Our buildings are not quite efficient when we talk about their productivity or functionality. We do not have adequate space for pedestrians in our cities. Our road networks are poorly designed. They're just adding to our traffic problems. And the list is endless. And there are many reasons behind these issues and problems. But I'm only going to talk about one primary reason and what we can possibly do to fill this void in our system. But the main reason why we are lagging behind in this race for innovation is the lack of using technologies that are available to us. The truth is, we fear change. We hate to use anything new or different. We like to look at others using something new or different and start adapting to that. And the process is quite slow. But innovation lies somewhere here. And that's something what we're missing out in India. Now, talking of innovation and technology, what comes to our mind when we hear the word technology? Most of us confuse technology to be synonymous for electronic gadgets, smartphones, or apps. Well, there is a lot more to technology than just that. And I'm going to talk about these aspects. But if you think about technology, it's not about the tools. It is actually about the methods and techniques to solve a problem, to carry out a task. And if you look into the innovators in this vast domain of technology, we know that there are leaders like Google, Facebook, Apple, or Tesla. They are the leaders in this domain, in this tech world. They are changing the way this world functions. They are changing the way we communicate with each other today. And the pace at which they are doing that is quite fast. They're adding new technologies in our lives every single day. In fact, by the time I finish this talk, there will be a few more technologies out there ready to be tested. And that is the pace of evolution of technology. And it won't be wrong to say that the world is also changing at the same pace. But are we as people changing and adapting at the same pace? Perhaps not. I'd like to talk about a slow pace of adaptation. But before that, let's look into some of the very interesting facts about these tech giants of today. Now, Google, all of us know Google. We've been using it excessively these days, pretty much to solve all our life problems. Well, Google is only 18 years old, just turned into an adult. Tesla has now launched self-driving cars, something none of us could imagine a few decades back. Tesla is only 13 years old. Facebook has not only changed the way we live and communicate, it has also changed the way this world functions today, how governments function today. All of us are using Facebook. Facebook is only 12 years old. Give it a thought. 12 years young, I should say. In fact, all of these companies are quite young if you look at the history of our civilization. But the impact that they have made has changed lives in years to come. What can we learn from these organizations? Is there anything common which we can see between these distinct innovators? Indeed, there are two things which I'd like to focus on. The first is a statistic that about 90% of people involved in these tech companies are in the age group of 20s and 30s. And there's a big reason behind that. At that age, you are more adaptive to change. You like to use something which is new, to adopt new technologies. Well, I won't like to underestimate the roles of senior professionals out there. But for a moment, let's just focus on the role of young people. The second common aspect between these tech giants is that all of them operate on data-driven technologies. Now, data is being created in this world every second. We are producers of data, we are consumers of data, something we are a part of, we don't realize. And this data is being processed, analyzed, and computed to yield some results. Now, a better word for this is computational technologies. It's fairly a new term. And computational technologies, as I mentioned, it's a fairly new term. We only started to think about computation about 20 years back. And computation is about using big data, about using computers to solve problems, to use precise computation, to use it to surpass the potentials of our human mind. Human mind is very powerful, we all know that. But the computers that we have created can take us much further away. They can help us achieve much more. Then why are we using these computers smartly? And as a subject, computational thinking was started about 20 years back. Now that's 60 years after Alan Turing invented the first modern day computer. And 174 years after Charles Babbage invented the first mechanical computer. We've taken a good sweet time to realize the potentials of computers and computing. And this subject is quite important to us. It does affect our cities we live in. It does affect the buildings we inhabit. And which is something which we don't realize. And I'd like to show you that by giving you a glimpse of the future of design. Designs which are futuristic, designs which are smart, designs that have used computation in their workflow. They can predict the intensities of failures and efficiencies of successes. Here is a transformable meeting space which was recently unveiled by Google and MIT. And it is made of 3D printed material which responds. It has a sense of intelligence responding to heat and temperature, which is taken from the users inside that space, and it keeps changing all the time. It's a work in progress research being carried out. Now imagine, how cool would it be to have a meeting space or a workspace like that in future, instead of our box cubicles. Another fine example on similar lines is this project by Akim Menges, which uses simple properties of wood to respond to humidity and change shape. And how it has been geometrically configured in the system is that they act as apertures that open and close using humidity. So there's more humidity, the wood changes shape, it opens the aperture, hence controlling the light inside the space. Now there's a lot of data that has to be computed here. And it does not use any external sensors, by the way. So it is not about high-tech systems only. It is about simple principles applied smartly. Here is a project which has been developed by me and my team, which looks into a facade system and a roof system, which automatically changes shape using the heat energy from the sun. It sounds very futuristic, and it is, in fact. We've researched a lot on shape memory alloys, which uses nickel and titanium alloys, which respond to heat and use them in a structure. And they create a force actuating the structure which keeps moving with time. And it controls the amount of heat and light inside the building without using any energy. And some of the examples from today, which we can look at, which also use computation in big or small ways, are projects like these. Swiss Wave by Norman Foster in London. It uses mathematical algorithms to resolve a facade system. The BMW Welch by Wolf Fricks. Hyder Ali Way Center by Zaha Hadid. The recently opened train station in New York by Calatrava. Or even the new terminal at the Mumbai airport by SOM. And smart technologies are not only restricted to architecture or buildings, they often cross domains. They cross into other creative domains. And from other domains, here is a chair designed by a designer in Los Angeles. It is 3D printed very strategically to optimize the material and structure, hence making it lightweight, efficient, and cost effective. Yes, cost effective. That's something we all want to know in India. At least my clients want to know that. Here is a dress from the future, which uses an embedded camera that tracks the eyes of someone looking at you, inculcating a sense of consciousness in people looking at your body, and it changes shape. Now that is quite a smart dress. again, if we scale up back to an architectural system, here is a live video of an algorithm which me and my team wrote, which designs various facade options. If I talk in numbers, about, let's say, 1 million options in a few seconds. And all of these options in real time are being analyzed and evaluated as per the daylight conditions cumulatively on all the floor plates. It all sounds very complex, and it is actually. There's a lot of data involved here. And we need to compute and process this data. And this can only happen through computation. And if I start to do that with my conventional techniques, which I've been taught in school, I think it's going to take me a couple of weeks, maybe a few months. But here the algorithm does that in a few minutes. Of course, it takes time to write the algorithm. Well, scaling up the ladder, let's look at a city, an urban system. Here's a very interesting tool developed by an American company, Urban Data Modeler, which uses various parameters scientifically. Parameters like the city bylaws, the building heights, FAR requirements, climatic data, wind directions, road networks, and any kind of data that can be quantified. And we can use that to design a city. And for me, a city designed through such a method is more likely to be a smart city than how we evaluate a smart city in India and how we are designing it. And designs like these can transform the way we live and work in future. Now imagine, if you're a designer, you know the climatic efficiency of a building right at the first step when you're starting to design. Imagine then the weight of the building or the cost of material while you're designing it, when you sketch out a concept. That saves a lot of time. Or even imagine living inside a building that automatically changes shape to control the temperature and light inside the building with changing time and seasons. That is smart. And having these tools is the power in your hands. And this is power to innovate. And technology plays a key role here. And since I mentioned the designs which are futuristic, this is not the future. This is all happening today and has happened in the past. So let's stop shying away by saying and calling things futuristic. We have to do these things now. They're happening all around the globe. In fact, the majority of designs happening today with the top designers across the globe demonstrate a use of computation in big or small ways. Why are we so slow in adapting to these techniques and methods? There is a strong reason in the pace of our adoption of new techniques. And I'd like to give you an example of that. 3D printing. I believe most of us know what 3D printing is. It's a revolutionary technology. It has changed the way we prototype and manufacture. And there is a lot of research going on to scale up this method, to even 3D print buildings, maybe cities in future. Well, you'd be very surprised to know that 3D printing as a method was invented in 1986. Check your calendars, it's 2016 now. Basically, we've taken a good 30 years to adapt the revolutionary technology. And this is slow. We are very slow and we need to change that. Now, what else is so slow or changing slowly, which is stopping us to innovate? I'd like to do a very small visual comparative here to make that point across. Now, this is an image from IBM from 1956. This huge box is a hard drive of 5 megabytes. We all know what 5 megabytes is today. A hard drive today, more than 1,000 times larger in data capacity, is 100 times smaller than that in physical size. Technology has certainly evolved. This is what a phone looked like about 150 years back. And we all know how a phone looks like today. We all have one. This is a classroom from 150 years ago. And you'd be surprised to see the difference today. None. There is no difference in our methods of education. I've got my smartphone in my pocket. Where is my smart education? Ask yourself that question. Well, the pace of adaptation to new techniques and technology has certainly been slow. And how do we change the system which is not ready to evolve? How do we change the industry which is very comfortable in not innovating, simply because innovation is a risky business? How do we synchronize technology, education, design, and people